Hi everybody, welcome to Mark's 900. I'm Mark. Now, ages ago I did a video on how to polish up the front pipes on your motorbike, particularly the Z900, which comes with an exhaust pipe which has got kind of a brown coating on it. Now that wears off and you're left behind with a sort of rusty stainless steel look. Well, I don't like that. I'd much rather have polished stainless steel like you get on the Z900 RS. So I did a video on some top tips of how to do that, and I had loads of views. I've got to thank you all for that, but along with loads of views, of course, comes loads of comments. Now the reason is because I made quite a lot of use of this stuff, Harpic Power Plus 10X. And so some of the comments were about the fact that if you're going to handle this, really, you should be wearing rubber gloves. Some of the comments were really good top tips on other ways that you can polish your pipes, and I'll come back to those at the end of the video and try a few of them out. But most of the comments were about this stuff and whether or not it can actually damage your exhaust pipes by using it. So I decided back in the summer that I was going to run an experiment. So I got a load of this, put it into some jam jars, and then put different types of metal in. In fact, let's go back in time about 6 months to the summer when the sun was shining, my hair was shorter, and I was putting this into there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take some of this stuff and put it on various different types of metal and leave it there for several months to see what happens. Now, just to go through what we've got here, in this jar I've got some rusty nuts and bolts. I'm guessing they were galvanised, sort of zinc coated at some point. They're still magnetic, they're all magnetic. Those are some rusty nails that I got out of a pallet, the one that I use for my tyre changing. So that's rusty stuff which is all magnetic and I guess sort of iron and steel based. In this one, this is an interesting one. I've got stuff which is not aluminium, but it's not magnetic. Now this is probably the closest thing I've got to my actual exhaust pipe, because when I put this magnet onto my exhaust pipe, it doesn't stick at all. And sure enough, it's exactly the same with this as well. So I think these are stainless steel, and I'm pretty sure they're the same sort of quality as the headers. So that'll be an interesting one. Other things I've got, this is an old knife, which is stainless steel and made in Japan. I know that because it says stainless steel Japan on it. So that one, again, is going to be an interesting one because I know that one's stainless steel. Over here, we've got some more nuts and bolts and things which are magnetic and they're galvanised. So that will be good to see what happens there. Other things I've got is just some old sort of nails and washers, just different type again of galvanized steel because it's all magnetic, but it's just a different quality to the nuts and bolts. And then finally, in my last jar, I'm going to have I've got some aluminium, and just for good measure, I'm chucking some coins in as well. So there we go. That's the sort of stuff I'm going to be testing against, and what I'm going to do is take each one of these jam jars and fill it up with some of this until it's pretty much covered, and then I will stick the lid on. I'll come back to that in a few months' time. Now, I know I said I was going to come back in a few months' time, but the results already have been quite startling. So this one is just started to fizz up a little bit. That's got the rusty nuts and bolts in, and there's quite a lot of reaction going on inside that jar. Some of the others are fairly just like doing nothing. That's the aluminium one. That's not really doing much. There's a little bit of fizzing in there. But these two, well, look at that. So that's the nuts and bolts, which I think is the sort of galvanised stuff, and that is again the galvanised bolts and the other things. So sorry, that's the nails and that's the nuts and bolts, and without me even shaking them, they've gone really fizzy. So it's going to be really interesting to see what I come back to in a few months' time in there. So what I'm going to do now is open them up and see how we go. So I've got the first one, which is the rusty nuts and bolts and nails. Now this has gone what looks like rusty water in here, so what I'm going to do is empty it into this one, which has got nothing in it, and then I'm going to give it a swill off in that, which is some water. So let's see what this looks like. So rusty nuts and bolts and nails. The nails were taken out of an old pallet, so they were very rusty indeed. So the nails seem to have lost all kind of integrity. They're bending very easily, although there's not much rust on them. They're in much better shape to look at than they were before, but yeah, they seem to be a lot weaker. These nuts and bolts, yeah, if I was to give those a swill off, actually they've come up quite nicely. I imagine with a bit of a scrub that would look good, the same as this one. And that nail there, again, it looks really clean. Most of the rust has gone off it. Oh, actually, that one's all right. So maybe that first nail was just a bit of a duff one. Okay, so it didn't seem to have done too much damage to the metalwork. It's just cleaned it up and got rid of the rust. We'll move on to this one. So this is stainless steel. And that has come up, well, I mean, to be fair, it wasn't that dirty when it went in, but it's absolutely immaculate now. We've got some screws and things in there, and they are completely intact. I mean, there's a nut. There's no pitting on it. There's no visible damage. They seem really good. So, not really any issues with those either. Next up then, we've got an old knife. This was a stainless steel knife, and it's got a really horrible colour. Look at that stuff. Ew. I wasn't expecting that. That's a very different reaction to the others. Let's have a look. Well, I can still see the writing on there that says stainless steel Japan. It looks duller than it did when it went in. Yeah. I mean, it's quite nasty and stained and a little bit dull. But it's not, I don't think that'll be any weaker. I might give that a smack with a hammer afterwards and see if it's made any difference. This one, well, that was some pressure in that. So this is what I think is galvanised steel. So we'll just have a look at that one. Whew. And yeah, again, I can't really see any damage done to the metal. Although, saying that, actually, there's no coating left on these whatsoever. I think these are one of the ones that fizzed up. So yeah, it's lost all of its shine. Whatever coating was on this before has completely gone. I mean, that bolt there and that one, they were quite shiny kind of metal colours. They're not now. So I think that's just removed all coating off there. This one, the green top, is again magnetic. I think this was another one of the ones that fizzed up. And we've got all sorts of metal in there, including a razor blade and an old washer. So again, all looks good. There's a rusty old nail. There's still quite a bit of rust on it. And some of these other things have just looking quite dull, as if whatever coating was on them again has come off. As for the razor blade, well, oh, that's destroyed the razor blade. That just fell apart in my fingers. Wow. Yeah, the metal on the edge of that has completely disintegrated, and that was definitely a brand new razor blade when it went in. Oh dear. And then finally, I had some stuff in here which was aluminium, so it was like a little very thin aluminium candle holder, and also some coins. Now that's quite thick, and the aluminium is completely gone. There's nothing there. Like, there's supposed to be a candle holder in there. It's not there. In fact, these coins don't look the right colour at all. They've gone a sort of, not just clean, but a kind of salmon colour. I don't know if you can really pick that up. They're very odd indeed. Now I've just found another piece of metal that came out of one of these. Yeah, it looks like it used to be a small washer, and it is completely destroyed. Splintered into small pieces, and there's no strength to it at all. I don't know what that was before, but it's destroyed it, and it is made of metal. There's also quite a few bits and pieces of stuff floating around in here, which I'm guessing is the remainder of, well, I don't know what, but yeah. Anyway. Right then, so what's my conclusion on all of this? Well, I thought I was going to sit here and say, this is no problem at all, it doesn't do any damage to metal whatsoever. However, my experiments would seem to suggest otherwise. It definitely does damage metal, certainly over an extended period of time. It also removes very quickly any coating that you've got on any metalwork. So I think my conclusion is, if you are going to use this, be really careful that you don't get it on any paintwork or any kind of metal that's got a coating on it, because it will strip it off in seconds. The other thing I'd say about this is, over an extended period of use, or if you use it regularly on your front pipes, I think it's going to do it some damage. Right, let's go out the front now and have a look at some of those other top tips I was given and see if we can get my front pipes looking nice and shiny, ready for the summer. So there we go then, those results were a bit of a shocker. I mean, that razor blade in particular had completely disintegrated in the middle, which was a real surprise. Right, let's go on to some other top tips that I got. Now, the first one was the use of GT85, and somebody said, you know what, if you put your bike away for the winter after you've given it a good clean and you've polished up your pipes, cover them in GT85 and it will keep them nice and shiny. I think that's a really good idea, but what I would caution is that you need to wipe that off before you go and ride the bike, because of course it will just burn onto the pipes. They get really hot, and you'll be left with a residue which will make it look worse than when you started. In the worst case, it could even burst into flames. So yeah, if you are going to put any sort of oil onto those pipes, make sure you wipe it off. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is metal polish. Now, I used metal polish and gave it a good rub with a cloth, and that obviously works because that's how metal polish generally does work. But one of the tips was, why don't you put metal polish on there and leave it overnight? It's effortless. Right, okay, so I've given that a go. I put this metal polish on here, just standard Autosol metal polish. I'll show you a picture of before and after. I smeared that on and I left it overnight. So I'm going to wipe that off now and see how it looks. So that comes off really easily. It's obviously dried on, and I don't think that's really worked very well. Hasn't had a great deal of impact on that pipe at all. It looks very similar to how I started. So, well, give it a go. Tell me what you think. But that didn't really work for me. Well, I'm a bit disappointed with that one. Right then, the other top tip that I got was to use coke and tin foil. Now, I don't know if this is a wind-up, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. So I've got some tin foil. I've gone for full fat coke. There was no specification of whether it should be diet coke or full fat, so we'll bung some of that in there. That's the same tub I used before, and of course it has been cleaned out. So there we go. We've got some coke. Put that over there, and let's get a big wad of tin foil. Dip that in the coke, and then see if it'll polish up the pipes. Now, hopefully nobody's going to leave me a comment telling me that coke is going to destroy my exhaust pipes and ruin my life. Do you know what? That is actually working. It's not working particularly quickly, but it is working. Yeah, there's certainly some staining around these pipes. That's not really doing anything to touch it. I suspect where there was anything that was particularly dirty, I haven't got a particularly dirty part, but it would probably be better on that. Okay, so thanks for all the top tips, and if you've got any more, I'll give those a try as well. But as it stands at the moment, I haven't really found any replacement for just getting in there with some metal polish and some good old elbow grease. Right, well, good luck everyone polishing up your pipes, and also make sure your chains are oiled. I'll see you soon. So the next one is quite an interesting one. Somebody said coke and tin foil, and if you give it a scrub with that, then it will in fact bring your pipes up a treat. Except that I haven't opened the fucking tin foil.